New team at Vice. A serious bunch. Trouble is the geezer running it. Nasty. I'd watch him if I were you. Tuesday 9, ITV 1.
In their line of work,
They were French special forces,
if you make a mistake,
armed in the UK,
somebody dies.
unannounced.
Hold your fire! Hold your fire! You are murderers!
The regiment's gonna pay the price,
You face the risk of dismissals and you might even go to prison.
unless they can find someone to take the fall.
Plan A, blame the French. It's always worked in the past.
Ultimate Force, the new series, Wednesday at 9, ITV1.
In 15 minutes, Sex and Religion examines how attitudes towards adultery have changed over the centuries. First on ITV1, the news. Man who gate-crashed Windsor is defended by his father.
He is not anti-establishment as far as I can make out.
The gay Bishop row, now it's turning bitter. And lining up to cheer on Henman at Wimbledon.
The ITV Weekend News with John Suchet.
Good evening. An inquiry is underway tonight into how a man in fancy dress gate-crashed Prince William's 21st birthday party. 36-year-old Aaron Barshak managed to interrupt the prince's birthday speech before he was arrested. Barshak's father said his son was merely a stand-up comedian trying to publicise himself. From Windsor, Tom Bradby reports.
He styles himself a comedy terrorist, but there will be plenty of senior policemen who won't be getting the joke.
Happy birthday! Out of Africa, I'm out of this world!
When Aaron Barchak arrived last night, we were standing outside watching. After 20 seconds or so, it was clear he wasn't a guest, and the camera switched away from him. But sometime in the course of the evening, he managed to get into what ought to be one of the most secure sites in the country, grabbing the microphone from Prince William as he addressed family and friends at his 21st. Barchak claims he climbed a wall. He certainly has a history of this. This was his performance at an anti-war rally earlier this year.
Being hijacked by the comedy terrorists!
His father said today he didn't mean any harm.
He is not anti-establishment as far as I can make out. He tries to see the funny side.
The Queen drove herself to church today. American tourists visiting Windsor can never believe the low-key security that surrounds the royal family here. It may be a little less low-key in the future. It is almost tempting to view this as above all just a very bold prank, but the consequences could have been serious, not least for Barchak himself, who can perhaps consider himself lucky he didn't come to any harm. It is rare for almost all senior members of the royal family to be gathered together in one place, and if Barchak had been someone with evil intent, well, you can imagine the consequences. Tom Bradby, ITV News, at Windsor.
This isn't, of course, the first time that security surrounding the royal family has been breached. 20 years ago, the Queen famously awoke to find an intruder, Michael Fagan, sitting on her bed. But in the world of international terrorism, security is supposed to be at its tightest. So what went wrong? Helen Wright has been finding out.
That even this castle stronghold was breached with ease by a man acting alone has once again raised questions about security surrounding the royal family in public and private. In theory, royal security should be tight. The royal family has a dedicated protection squad, effectively royal bodyguards. The Metropolitan Police is responsible for securing palace property. At Windsor, there's also the Thames Valley Force in charge outside the castle. At last night's party, guests had to produce their invitations and cars had to display a Windsor Castle parking permit. What's not clear, though, is whether any further checks were made once guests were inside. Security experts say procedures must change immediately.
The royal family have now got to accept that with the security climate that we're now in, they've got to accept more robust security measures, and that's what's going to happen. The police have got to stop using kid gloves.
Today's is not the first review of royal security or the first disturbing incident. In 1982, Michael Fagan, hooded here, broke into the Queen's bedroom. A year earlier, a man fired 6 blank shots at the Queen during the Trooping the Colour ceremony. And in 1994, Prince Charles's detectives ran to his aid after a man fired a starting pistol during a visit to Australia. There are now 2 separate reviews of last night's security breach. If the initial results fail to satisfy the Home Secretary, another more detailed investigation may follow. Helen Wright, ITV News.
3 Palestinians were shot dead tonight by the Israeli army in Gaza. It follows the assassination of a militant Palestinian leader in the West Bank. That killing prompted a warning by the US Secretary of State, who said it could jeopardize hopes of peace.
We can understand the situation of, quote, a ticking bomb when there is an immediate threat that has to be dealt with, but anything that is sort of out of that immediate definition has to be looked at in light of the consequences it will have to our ability to move forward.
The row over the appointment of a gay bishop appears to be deepening tonight. Canon Jeffrey John's current boss has slammed those who have campaigned against his promotion. He told ITV News their behaviour was appalling and disgraceful. Philip Ray-Smith reports.
At Southwark Cathedral, they know Reading's new bishop well. Dr. Jeffrey John is currently a canon here. Today, the Dean of the Cathedral launched a stinging attack on those trying to block his promotion.
My view of the 9 bishops who wrote the letter asking for the reconsideration is that it was an appalling thing for them to do, and it was done behind the backs of all the other bishops, and therefore is really simply disgraceful.
And those views seem to be echoed by the congregation here.
My reaction is that it doesn't matter about his sexuality at all. It's whether he's right for the job, and I think he probably is.
I think it's a very positive appointment myself. I think he'll lead the church well into the 21st century.
The canon has been in a gay relationship for more than 20 years. He says it's now a celibate one, and that makes it acceptable to the church's current doctrine. But critics in his new diocese believe the appointment is against the Bible's teachings.
Male with male and female with female, it's just not on.
Tonight it looks increasingly likely that the Archbishop of Canterbury will get drawn into this row. Dr. Rowan Williams is of course well known for his liberal views on gay clergy. He'll be hoping to prevent a damaging split to the Anglican Church, but it's hard to imagine what he could say that would satisfy both sides. Philip Ray-Smith, ITV News at Lambeth Palace.
Scientists say they could be a step closer to beating ovarian cancer, which kills thousands of women every year. They've discovered a gene which appears to halt the cancer's progress. The challenge now is to find a drug that mimics the gene and therefore blocks the growth of cancer cells.
In terms of understanding this disease, potentially this opens a completely new avenue in ovarian cancer research with prospects for improving patient care.
Tennis, and Tim Henman's shoulders are once again feeling the weight of a nation's expectations. Wimbledon starts tomorrow and dozens of people are spending the night queuing for tickets. Catherine Jacobs been sampling the atmosphere along with the strawberries and cream.
Happy Wimbledon!
Settling down for the night, some of the hundreds of die-hard fans who are braving the elements to try to get their hands on those coveted centre court tickets. And despite a few downpours earlier, the crowd remains enthusiastic.
Just love my tennis. I don't like watching it on the telly. I love watching it on here. This is, everybody thinks, I'm mad at home, but that's what I want to do.
Inside, the man who's keeping British hopes alive was busy sussing out the competition. But it wasn't long before Tim Henman took to the courts himself, seeded 10th, his first games on Tuesday. And Greg Rosetsky, fresh from an open win in Nottingham last week, is hoping to add another string to his bow, or rather his racket. But both Brits will have to get past last year's winner Leighton Hewitt to get anywhere near the title. The Australian was practising with girlfriend Kim Clijsters earlier, herself a hopeful for the women's title. Judging by the power behind that forehand, Venus Williams and sister Serena may have something to say about that. So after months of preparations, the finishing touches are now being put painstakingly in place to make sure everything's in line. While for the hundreds of thousands of fans who'll be flocking to Wimbledon over the next fortnight, the refreshment tent is surely going to be a main source of attraction. Here, they're expected to get through 27,000 kilos of English strawberries and 4,000 litres of cream. Not to mention, of course, 12,500 bottles of fine champagne. The key question, of